friends, welcome back to my channel. Today we are discussing my spring TBR that I have just made. If you remember back to, I don't know, November time when I made a very specific video called a super ambitious November TBR or something like that, it definitely had the word ambitious in it. We previously discussed the fact that I did not accomplish that TBR in November, nor did I accomplish it in December. In fact, I am still accomplishing it in February. And that's okay. We have to normalize that. We have to normalize being way too ambitious. And that's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing because as humans, we can achieve our goals, even if it takes us longer than initially anticipated. So here I am, still accomplishing my goals and reading the books that I wanted to get to. But of course, since I finished my TBR, all the books that I was really excited to read, I had to make a new one. So I have 6 books here that I am going to read next that I am so excited to finally dive into and that I'm very much so in the mood for right now. First, we have The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. It has been way too long since I read a romance book. Listen, the addiction to this genre is very real. If you haven't yet read a romance book, there's a good chance that if you read one, you might become addicted and you might just have to keep reading them to feed it. And just let that serve as a warning. That's not the case for everybody. Some people hate romance books and that's okay too. But I have very much developed an addiction and it is time that I need to read a romance book. And this one, obviously very hyped up. It has recently been made into a movie starring Lucy Hale. I think that's her name. The girl from Pretty Little Liars that played Aria. That's how I remember her. If you also suffered through that entire show like me, then that might be the association you make with Lucy Hale as well. Or am I simply remembering her name as Lucy Hale because the main character of this book is named Lucy? Or is that just an awesome coincidence that they picked an actress named Lucy to play a woman named Lucy? I'm gonna have to investigate this and confirm this because this is very interesting. All I know about this book is that it is a hate to love, romance, enemies to lovers between Lucy and Josh, and they work in a publishing company, and that is enough for me. I want to know because I want to work in the publishing industry. This is a workplace romance in the publishing industry. What more could I ask for? Also reminds me that the fact that Emily Henry is coming out with a publishing workplace romance called Book Lovers this year, which I am so excited about, but I should read this one before I read that one since this one definitely came before that one. So yeah, I'm very excited to get to this. Next, I have Helium by Rudy Francisco. Rudy Francisco is a phenomenal contemporary poet. He has a lot of really awesome slam poetry up on YouTube that I would totally recommend you checking out. I have read his collection called I'll Fly Away, which is not his first collection. This is his first collection, I think. And I just need to get to it because I love him as a person and as a poet. I think his poetry is so accessible and direct and yet so lovely. Like, he comes up with the most captivating ways to describe things and I'm in awe of him. So I'm very excited to read more of his poetry, and I have recently been fangirling over his poetry with one of my coworkers, and so I need to read this so that I can loan it to him and we can, obsess over it together again. Next, I have The Color Purple by Alice Walker. This is a classic that I have been meaning to get to for a long time, but it feels like the right time right now because last month I just finished reading Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston, which I loved. It was incredible. But in that book, or at least in my edition of that book, there was a foreword and afterword and some supplementary information at the back of the book, all of which I read and all of which was very helpful in contextualizing and understanding the novel. That being said, Alice Walker is a huge proponent of Zora Neale Hurston's works. I think on my edition of Their Eyes Were Watching God, there's actually a blurb by Alice Walker that says, "There is no book more important to me than that one." Well, it says this one, but it was that one. You get what I'm saying. And Alice Walker was actually responsible for revitalizing the works of Zora Neale Hurston and bringing attention back to her in the more present day. Alice Walker actually took it upon herself to locate Zora Neale Hurston's unmarked grave and to put a headstone on it that I believe she wrote Genius of the South on. And basically I already have a great deal of respect for Alice Walker before I've actually read anything by her, and so it is time for me to actually read something that she has written. And this is definitely her most talked about work, so I'm going to begin here. Next, I want to read Sister Outsider by Audre Lorde. This is a collection of intersectional feminist writings, mostly essays, I believe. I've been meaning to get my hands on something by Audre Lorde ever since I took a class called Women's Autobiographical Writing, and one of my classmates did a really compelling presentation on Audre Lorde and read us excerpts from this book, and I've been meaning to read it ever since then. I'm beyond excited to finally read some Audre Lorde and to delve into some intersectional feminist work. And can we talk about this cover real quick? Are you kidding me? It's beautiful. Next, I want to read a book that is very, very different. The Sin Eater's Daughter by Melinda Salisbury. This is a book that has been on my bookshelf for an embarrassing amount of years. Let's put this in perspective. I am now 21 years of age. I pre-ordered this book when I was 14. 14. I remember reading about this book before it came out and thinking, oh, that sounds so good. That shit sounds awesome. And I pre-ordered it. I was so excited about it. And then it came in, and I still haven't read it 7 years later. Anyways, all I remember about this book is it is a young adult fantasy novel following a girl named Twila who can kill people with her touch. And so she is an executioner in a kingdom. And I thought that sounded like the coolest thing back then. And it does still sound very cool, but it also just reminds me of Shatter Me because I have since read Shatter Me, and there is a similar premise there. And while I like Shatter Me, I didn't love it. So who knows, maybe this will blow Shatter Me out of the water. Anyways, it is about time I get to it, and it is going to be read very, very soon. Finally, I intend to read The Namesake by Jhumpa Lahiri. About a year and a half ago, I read The Interpreter of Maladies by Jhumpa Lahiri, and I adored it. It is such a phenomenal collection of short stories, and I recommend it to so many people. I work in a bookstore, and I recommend The Interpreter of Maladies to so many people. It's just it's a work that I think that everybody can gain something from, and I think that Jhumpa Lahiri's writing is so lyrical and so realistic in that book. Anyways, I have been meaning to read more Jhumpa Lahiri ever since then, and I have now found 3 of her books either at a thrift store or in a clearance section, and so I have so much literature from her that I just need to pick up, and it was about time that I picked up one of them. So I'm going to start with The Namesake, which is a novel, so I have not actually read a novel from her, only short stories. I don't know that much about this book except that it does take place in India, and what I've read from her so far, most of her short stories that I've read took place in America, but from the perspective of Indian Americans. Scratch everything I just said, this does take place in America. It says, meet the Ganguly family, new arrivals from Calcutta, trying their best to become Americans even as they pine for home. The name they bestow on their firstborn Gogol betrays all the conflicts of honoring tradition in a new world, conflicts that will haunt Gogol on his own winding path through divided loyalties, comic detours, and wrenching love affairs. I take back everything I said before. This is about an Indian American named Gogol navigating his transition into American society. So, sounds great. I know Jhumpa Lahiri has excelled at this type of story in the past, considering that she has a first-hand perspective on it, and I'm very excited to see it again in this wonderful novel form. If you made it this far, please admire how I have recently been displaying my TBRs with the cutest freaking black cat kitty bookends that I found. I got them from Amazon with a gift card, but anyways, please admire. All right, that's your reward for getting this far. Yeah, it's perfect. I love it. But also ignore my dead plant. I'm still learning. And that was a heartbreaking loss. I did love that plant, but everything's a growing, learning experience, correct? Maybe. Please encourage me. Okay, that's all. Goodbye. Back to the video. All right, that is all. Stay tuned to see what I end up thinking about all of these books. I'm pumped to get into them. Let me know what you're excited to read soon, and I will see you in the next video.